So you want to sketch, you want to start picking up your pen, your pencil, and producing fun little sketches, perhaps in a sketchbook, perhaps on little bits of paper. Brilliant. What an amazing hobby. What an amazing thing you have decided to do. Perhaps though you don't know where to get started, from the basics like supplies through to how to literally make your first sketch, where to find your inspiration, and then once you've done that, where do you go from there? Where do you go to keep improving and working on your style? We're going to cover all of that today in this video on how to start sketching. Hopefully a video which is great for everyone, great for beginners because we are covering the basics, but also great for those little tips and tricks which we can all learn from one another as artists as well. I'm Toby. I love sketching loose, mostly using my ink. As I say, we're going to cover pencils and other kinds of pen as well today. And if you like my style, if you like my style of teaching, join me on sketchloose.co.uk. I have a free course linked in the description below, and also on Skillshare, where I have loads of ink and watercolor classes all about fun, loose and interesting sketching. Now, people, in my opinion, put far too much weight on what pen to use. There are literally hundreds of pens, and if you are anything like me, you'll get suckered into buying far too many, and then you'll only ever use 2 or 3. There is no right pen to use. There is no pen where you will pick it up and suddenly magic will appear on the page. The kind of pen that you will find amazing art from will be something you find through exploration and will be different for you than it is from your family, your friends, or from me. So do not over focus on this question. Do not over focus on getting the perfect pen, especially not when you're setting out nice and early. Ballpoints are the humble pen that you find in every office. They make that satisfying click, and they are great for writing with. They're also perfectly fine for drawing and sketching with. They do have slight disadvantages. You have to press a little hard. Their mark isn't quite as black. But with that comes an incredible texture, the ability to build up almost like a pencil, a tonal drawing. So if all you have is a ballpoint pen and a scrap of paper, you will be able to make some incredible art. Next, we think of more traditional ink pens. There's fine liners out there. They come in all sorts of varieties. I would say having a relatively fine one, something between a 0.3 and a 0.5 millimeter, is a great starting point. But similarly, you can use fountain pens. You've got hundreds of these. Do not overthink this decision though. Have a cheap option in mind, something like a Lamy Safari, a classic disposable fine liner. All of these things are perfectly good for sketching with. You can also use non-ink pens, acrylic Posca markers, for example. And then there is the pencil. People say, why do you not use pencil? Well, actually pencil is brilliant to use. Pencil has the advantage that you can rub it out. That's also a disadvantage. It does slow your progress. If you can always rub out your marks, then actually it can literally slow you down drawing, and it can result in you repeating the same mistakes over and over because you have the opportunity just to change them. The advantage is that you can make a slower, more considered drawing, and they are great for creating those, again, slowly built up tonal drawings, perhaps with a little bit more realism for more challenging subjects like hands or animals or portraits. They are wonderful. Compare that to an ink drawing which is quick, immediate, black, and perhaps full of mistakes, and with that comes a lot more fun and quirkiness. So what pen? Don't overthink it. Just grab what you've got and then slowly develop. The last question, of course, is going to be what paper should we use? And I would say pick a decent sketchbook. I would say something this size, A5 in size, is brilliant. This is a half letter size if you're across the Atlantic. The half letter size, the A5 size, means you can fit a couple of little doodles in. You can fit 4 smaller things in. Equally, you can make a more considered ink and watercolor sketch, which takes longer, and yet it's achievable. This is a brilliant size, and it lets you fill it up with various qualities of sketch. Do not worry about the quality of the sketch. Just use your sketchbook to explore and experiment. But scraps of paper are great as well, be that watercolor paper because you want to experiment with watercolors, be that cheap recycled paper or printer paper, office paper, cartridge paper, it doesn't matter. Explore, experiment. Probably again, start with something cheap, and that's where a sketchbook comes in handy because you get a lot more paper in one of these for the same amount of money than if you buy loose, fancy sheets from an art shop. Now, we can move on to the sketching, can't we? We can finally move on to discussing the sketching. And let's start off with the biggest challenge in sketching. And the biggest challenge isn't the pens, it's not the subject, it's not how we view perspective. The biggest challenge is you, the squishy human, or to be more precise, the pink stuff in between your ears. Because what happens when we start sketching is we become perfectionists and we see this need that everything must be finished, be perfect, and all mistakes are a total failure. This is not true. People make mistakes in everything. That includes the most famous artists you see out there. If you go to an artist's exhibition, you will see within their amazing works plenty of things which perhaps you would not be happy with if you look closely enough. Now, as the artist, what you do is you look closely. You don't take a step back. You don't see the bigger picture. The bigger picture might be that actually, from a foot away, your drawing looks amazing. Or the bigger picture might be that over the last month of drawing, you have improved enormously. The key here is to be able to draw something which is rubbish and laugh at how bad it is, and also see that there are good elements in it. To see the funny side when things go wrong, but also see the joy and the improvements and the positivity when things go right. And there's always something which goes right in my experience, or almost always. Now that we are over the most difficult bit, the squishy pink human bit, we can move on to literally how to start sketching. Now here, I would recommend copying. Now that copying could be in the form of finding an artist whose style resonates with you on Instagram or on Google, or finding YouTube tutorials and aiming for those ones which just seem achievable to you. And start by copying, not literally painfully copying every single line. No, but using their lines and seeing how you can get the same image onto the page in perhaps effectively the same way, but not just tracing. So somewhere in between that copying and actually taking your own direction. And that will allow you to slowly move forward and forward and forward, such that before long, instead of just copying, what you are doing, in fact, is not copying. You are seeing someone's style and their ideas, and you're taking the ones you like, but doing them in your own way. And then the next step is to start taking a scene you've done as a copy and then repeating it for yourself, repeating it without the tutorial, without the other image in front of you. And now you're having to rely on muscle memory and rely on those ingrained habits, which by now you will have ingrained. And before you know it, you move forward and you are sketching. Now at this point, you'll start seeing issues with your work which you didn't see before. That's because you are seeing like an artist. You are seeing things that you've been learning about. You'll have heard words like shapes. You'll have heard words like perspective, proportions, foreshortening. All of these horrible words which are best ignored at the beginning. But before long, you'll want to understand more. Now, there is no one brilliant best resource to find out more. But somewhere like YouTube has tons of tutorials. Somewhere like Google has all the answers across all the interweb, albeit in various different realms of quality. And of course, there are brilliant books out there which can take you through these concepts. What you need to do now is explore the concepts which you feel are important, that you feel you could benefit from. If you are wanting to be a urban landscape artist, you're going to need to learn about perspective. If you want to be, for example, a still life painter in the end, you're going to need to learn about shadow and making interesting compositions, because interesting still life compositions do not just fall out of the air. Unlike amazing skies, which literally fall out of thin air and look amazing, and we can just find them wandering around. So you're going to have to find those key concepts which are important to you. If you like urban sketching, if you like loose sketching, then I would of course recommend my channel and sketchloose.co.uk, where my courses cover all of what I think are the key concepts like simplification, shapes, perspective, loose washes of watercolor and things like that. So there's always going to be a resource out there that you can find to suit you and what you need to learn. Now that you are learning your concepts, the next thing, the final thing, the most fun thing to do is experiment. Develop that sketching habit. So keep sketching. Time spent sketching is what will basically fill your sketchbook, and as you fill your sketchbook, you will find yourself improving. Maybe what I could suggest is an art habit, a sketching habit, a daily routine. 10 to 20, even 30 minutes if your lifestyle allows for it, where you have some kind of structure to what you are sketching to keep you moving forward. That doesn't mean everything has to be better than the one before, but it means every month you'll have taken a little step forward. And maybe in 100 or 200 years, you will feel good about yourself. And I say that with a little bit of lightheartedness because as an artist, you will always have times where you do not feel you are any good at your craft. That is something important to remember. On day 2, you may feel just as rubbish as you do on day 100. And for me, on day 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, it keeps repeating itself that there are days where I'm just like, whoa, why can't I be good? Why can I not be good? But on the rest of the days, I love it. And even on those bad days, I can actually get myself back into that mental state. And this is where we come full circle back to the difficult bit in sketching. The squishy pink stuff in between our ears is what stops us from enjoying ourselves. And fundamentally, when people ask you if you're doing something wrong, or when you ask yourself if you're doing something wrong, the question you should ask was I sketching? If you were sketching, you were doing it right. Doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter the outcome, you were sketching, well done. And that is my message for the day. So with that, have fun, go out and sketch. If you want to join me on Sketch Loose or on Skillshare, there's links down below. And I'll see you in the next video on YouTube. So thank you everyone for watching my little sketching videos. If you enjoy my content, please do subscribe to my channel because it makes me really, really happy. Thanks again.